quality in the man which commanded respect and obedience. A fine character, and we shall see what society made of it. Over the prison workshop was an inspector, who rarely forgot that he was a jailer also to his subordinates, handing them the tools with one hand and casting chains upon them with the other. A tyrant, never using even self-reasoning, with ideas against which there was no appeal, hard rather than firm. At times he could even be jocular, doubtless a good father, a good husband, really not vicious, but bad. He was one of those men who never can grasp a fresh idea, who apparently fail to be moved by an emotion, yet with hatred and rage in their hearts, they look like blocks of wood, heated on the one side, but frozen on the other. This man's chief characteristic was obstinacy, and so proud was he of this very stubbornness that he compared himself with Napoleon, an optical delusion like taking the mere flicker of a candle for a star. When he had made up his mind to a thing, however absurd, he would carry out that absurd idea. How often it happens that, when a catastrophe occurs, if we inquire into the cause, we find it originated through the obstinacy of one with little ability, but having full faith in his own powers. Such was the inspector of the prison workshop at Clairvaux, a man of flint, placed by society over others, who hoped to strike sparks out of such material. But a spark from a like source is apt to end in a conflagration. The inspector soon singled out Claude Gueux, who had been numbered and placed in the workshop, and finding him clever, treated him well. Seeing Claude looking sad, for he was ever thinking of her he termed his wife, and being in a good humour by way of pastime to console the prisoner, he told him the woman had become one of the unfortunate sisterhood, and had been reduced to infamy. Of the child, nothing was known. After a time, Claude had accustomed himself to prison rule, and by his calmness of manner and a certain amount of resolution clearly marked in his face, he had acquired a great ascendancy over his companions, who so much admired him that they asked his advice, and tried in all ways to imitate him. The very expression in his eyes clearly indicated the man's character. Besides, is not the eye the window to the soul? And what other result could be anticipated than that the intelligent spirit should lead men with few ideas, who yielded to the attraction as the metal does to the lodestone? In less than 3 months, Claude was the virtual head of the workshop, and at times he almost doubted whether he was king or prisoner, being treated something like a captive pope, surrounded by his cardinals. Such popularity ever has as its attendant hatred, and though beloved by the prisoners, Claude was detested by the jailers. To him, 2 men's rations would have been scarcely sufficient. The inspector laughed at this, as his own appetite was large. But what would be mirth to a duke, to a prisoner would be a great misfortune. When a free man, Claude Gueux could earn his daily 4-pound loaf and enjoy it. But as a prisoner, he daily worked, and for his labour received 1.5 pounds of bread and 4 ounces of meat. It naturally followed that he was always hungry. He had just finished his meagre fare, and was about to resume his labours, hoping in work to forget famine, when a weakly-looking young man came towards him, holding a knife and his untasted rations in his hand, but seemingly afraid to address him. "What do you want?" said Claude roughly.